As the scouts were nearing Winterhome, I would admit that I would be lying if I said that I lacked anxiety. Which meant that it was worse for everyone else. But they did not need to know that. I decided that now would be a good time to expand the housing, as it was an important issue to deal with. As for the scouts at the gloomy cave, survivors were found in it, about to be attacked by polar bears. They couldn't be left alone, so the scout party attacked the polar bears. Both they and the survivors got out alive and were brought back to our city. Although it was doubtful that they would arrive before the other scout party reached their destination. What they found in Winterhome was an exploded generator. The streets of the ruined city are littered with scores of dead bodies. The City Chronicle describes a shortage of food and citizens' increasing despair. The following squabbles, riots, and descent into anarchy. Fights for dwindling resources and the eventual starvation. The last entry. God forbid us. We're eating our own dead. There's no hope. We're on our own. I knew that the people would not like what was found in Winterhome, but we had to press on regardless. Those freshwater springs looked like a promising... well, they looked promising at the time. So I had the scout party go there. And I braced myself for what was going to happen. People start to gather as the news of the fate of Winterhome spreads through the city. Some of them want to drop everything and flee to London. Panic is starting to set in. I must give them purpose. I had two paths available to me. One of order and one of faith. I could choose one, but not the other. secular and religious, they rarely went together, so I chose secular order and signed the law on the neighborhood watch.
A new law has passed.
We needed to keep track of everything and make sure that the anarchy of Winterhome does not happen here. More steel is needed. And I knew it would also be a good idea at some point to establish depots to acquire resources. There are some that want to leave. Which was not a good situation. I told them to calm down. We're not going to die. I need to bring order to this city. In order to stop those from potentially throwing their lives away from doing so. The question was where to place the guard towers. Of course, I would need to place them where they would be at their most effective. Yes, not the most ideal of locations, but I clearly didn't have this situation in mind. When I was having the settlement constructed. Although I would need to choose wisely. increase fairly soon. As for what the scouts brought, supplies and more workers and engineers, even children, it was not at a good time as there was a lack of housing. Not to mention the situation at Winterhome. Would impact mood farther still. I couldn't just ignore this looming crisis, because if I did, it would only get worse. An American camp for one, and we found some survivors. One was heading back to our city. The other was going to see where the Americans were. Well, it was unlikely that they would be alive, considering what had only just happened today. On this day. People are joining the Londoners. I said, I see. Not a lot I could do about that. At least not at this point. More watchtowers were needed. Where if I could have them built. I suspect I would need to move some of the populace to other parts of the city in order to have watchtowers where they would be at their most effective. That would require an expanded steel production capability. the situation at this point looks pretty grim. Some were ready to abandon us, and hope was in short supply. I knew that if I wanted to convince the Londoners not to leave, that I would need additional measures. Additional measures taken sooner rather than later. Because because patience is a finite resource. The patience appears to be quite considerable, but it will not last forever. There's only so much that some are willing to put up with for any length of time. I would need to take that into consideration. And respond accordingly. Yes, I know it's a bit slower to construct bunkhouses, but they are better insulated. Although I'm unable to... well, I was unable to improve the current ones when there are some who lacked anything at all. But at least the wall drill is researched. Yes, the coal mine. I could see that as useful. As for the wall drill, it was good timing that we had some arriving, as it also resulted in supplies arriving, including the steam core needed for it. Perhaps another steam hub is needed. Firstly, to provide a warm path for the workers in the steelworks that was already built, but also for the steelworks that could be made nearby. I would need to expand steel production if we were to survive. Oh, you know what I mean. But at least the housing situation is alleviated somewhat. Yes, a child was climbing up the generator. But the neighborhood watch caught that child in time. Thankfully. It could have been much worse. I highly doubt that the first death would be what the people wanted to hear right now. The situation was grim enough as it is. At this point, coal mining was a viable gathering option. As for what to research next, that was more problematic. Mostly because I lack the steel for pretty much anything. Although, one thing that would be nice at this point, I thought, was to have the same yields of food from hunters, but with using slightly less hunters. Yes, that would be a good idea, because that would mean more workers helping out here. in order to acquire the steel for, well, pretty much anything. I would need an automaton to work on that. Although right now, at this point in the day, the automaton was moving towards the nearest steam hub to refuel. Well, flying hunters would be nice, but even better would be needing less workers. Although I'm sure that, well, I was sure that we'd get around to working on that eventually. Yes, they reached the American camp. Tesla manufacturing. That is interesting. As for the supplies, let's just say that the Americans wouldn't be needing them. Yes. Nikola Tesla. I've heard of him. Not all good things. Well, if there is evidence of his existence here, we would find it.